Hello everyone, my dear friends. I'm now driving a Mercedes-AMG Gran Turismo Roadster. An interesting fact about this test is that just a few days ago I didn't know I would be recording it. Łukasz wrote to me saying that he watches my videos, that he really likes them, and that he'd be happy to hand over the keys to his AMG Gran Turismo Roadster so I could review it on my channel. Well, you just don't turn down offers like that. So I thought I took the keys and now I'm driving through Skawina to Skawinski Park, where I hope I'll find some shade. To tell you about this car, I warmly invite you. You don't see the AMG Gran Turismo Roadster on the streets very often. It looks like a concept car. Even after all these years, it sounds like a thunderstorm, and as a used car, it's still available at the price of a new premium car. This is the last of the true Roadsters with a V8 engine, and today we'll check how much sense it makes as a choice on the used market in a world of increasingly quieter electric cars. You're very welcome to join me. I also asked the owner a few questions. The owner preferred to stay off camera, so listen to what the answers were. Why did you choose the AMG Gran Turismo and not, for example, something from Italian Cars or a classic 911?
It was kind of an impulse. In 2019, I went with my daughter to Hungaroring for Formula One. We had a 4-day ticket there. Back then, you could still walk around the pit boxes, so we went through all of them and finally reached the safety cars, because at that time, those cars were used as safety cars. I understand, but it wasn't the Black Series, just the AMG model. And back then, I dreamed that maybe one day I could have it. Really. And yeah, 5 years passed and I made it.
In terms of appearance, the AMG Gran Turismo is a direct rival to the Porsche 911 Cabrio, but it looks different from any other car in this segment, because it came into the world to fill the gap left by the SLS, of course. So it has a long hood, a cabin set almost over the rear wheels, a huge grille, Panamericana, and a wide rear with an active spoiler. This is a classic roadster in the muscle car style, but with AMG technology. This particular model is from 2019 already, after the facelift, with the Panamericana grille under the hood. 4-liter V8 biturbo, 476 horsepower, 630 Nm of torque, rear-wheel drive, only of course, 7-speed dual-clutch speed-shift transmission, and a 0 to 100 km/h sprint in 4 seconds. Top speed over 300 km/h. Declared fuel consumption is about 13 liters per 100 km. But why am I talking so much? Listen to how this engine sounds. Thank you for watching. Was it a long search process, or was it more of a spontaneous decision? Did you find something at an auction? Because I understand you imported it from the States, right?
Yes, on Copart. A company here from Krakow imported it for me. I wasn't looking for a convertible, but I ended up with a convertible.
These cars cost about $500,000 in Poland. Was importing it from the States really profitable?
In this case, yes, because I managed to win the auction at a good price. Here the damage was really minor, just cosmetic, because the rear corner was damaged, and since it's aluminum, cars in the States aren't repairable and the insurance companies declare them a total loss.
The curb weight of this car is 1,600 kilos, and compared to the newer generation C192, this car is like a ballerina. The newer one, already based on the SL, weighs 200 kilo more, not to mention the 2.2 tons. The roof here folds and unfolds in 11 seconds, which is exactly the same as the SLS needed. The roof is 3-layered and can be operated at speeds of up to about 50 km/h. Probably the most interesting thing in the interior is the layout of the center tunnel and the arrangement of the buttons and knobs on it, because it all forms a V8 motif. And that's the kind of design that, by analogy, is supposed to symbolically resemble a V8 engine. Here we have exactly 8 buttons or knobs, 4 cylinders on each side. I don't think they do it like that anymore these days, so it's nice to see something like this here. Is this your daily car? I'll say right away I drove it, and I know you're about to say no, because you can't drive this car every day.
It's not a weekend car, not for Sundays, not for lunch with your wife, or a trip with the roof down, just for some fun.
My dear friends, the partner of this episode is MUBIPL, which is a well-known way for you to buy cheap insurance. This comparison tool checks offers from many different insurance companies and gives you a ranking of the cheapest offers when you buy through MUBIPL/Zakar. Additionally, after purchasing a policy, you can also get 100 Polish zloty cashback. Check it out for yourself, even if your policy isn't expiring right now. After entering your car's details, you'll get an overview of the entire market within a few seconds. Keep in mind, though, that the prices shown will be before the cashback is deducted. You can compare this with what you paid for your last policy. It might come in handy in the future. The link is in the description, and let's not overpay for insurance. The whole interior generally gives off a sense of cockpit-like enclosure. You sit deep inside with a wide tunnel and a high console, so it feels more like lying in a fighter jet than just sitting on a couch in a living room. Besides, the seat itself isn't particularly console-like. There are all kinds of adjustments here, including narrowing the side supports. So you can adjust it to your liking, but it definitely won't be a comfortable couch. In relation to the steering wheel, I can position myself almost perfectly. I'd say I'm just a few centimeters short. Here the steering wheel is already extended to the maximum and lowered a bit. I have to look for the right compromise. I really need to find a compromise. That's because this console comes into the center tunnel with this kind of arch. Here, a typical Mercedes arch, which makes my right knee hit this arch and I can't move any further under the steering wheel. So judge for yourself. It's not a huge problem, but it's not perfect either. I'm not bumping my head on the roof since there's plenty of space in the convertible, but I do feel a bit too tall. I guess that's just the way this car is designed, because when you're driving faster on the highway, here without the roof, of course, the stream of air that passes over the windshield really hits you hard and gives you a new hairstyle. So you could say that if I were about 10 centimeters shorter, I'd probably feel a bit more at home in this car. But it's not really a big critical problem. That's it for the 2-meter guy test, because I'm not going to move to the back. When it comes to materials, I wouldn't say this car is really focused on luxury. It's more about design and emotions. Of course, you can't say it's finished cheaply either. Here, for example, we have leather with stitching, but it's completely hard. Here it's just a little bit soft. You can feel maybe a millimeter of foam underneath. Here it's already hard plastic, and here the plastic is even harder. Well, we won't comment on the look of the multimedia because obviously that becomes outdated very quickly. So back to the materials. Here again we have leather that bends just a little under your finger, and I think it's similar here. And actually it's good that it bends here because this is where your knee might rest. Here we come to a mandatory element of every premium car, which is piano black. Back in those years it was a must-have feature, even though today we don't really like it that much. Back then it was probably, okay, now let's move on. Oh, we could show this old Mercedes trick here. Here we have a knob that we use to select, for example, the radio. Of course, it's multifunctional. It can also go right, left, and so on. And there are different options anyway. Here we have a touchpad and we can enter an address. And here there are also touch buttons. This is the gear shift lever, which, well, I think there's a consensus that it's positioned way too far back, too far behind, and reaching for it is awkward. With a normal hand position, when you rest your elbow on the armrest, which we'll get to in a moment, the lever is even a bit further back, which isn't very comfortable. Here we have the drive mode selector. Here we have the engine start stop. Here is the electronic stability program off button. And as you can see, this button is blank. Here we can make the exhaust louder, turn off the start-stop system, or switch the gearbox to manual mode. And finally, here we have the volume control, but here we hear, unfortunately, you can't control the volume. The armrest creaks because it's always in a very loud mode here, so that the armrest is soft, but it still creaks. Well, unfortunately, in Mercedes at that time, it probably wasn't anything unusual. On the left side, it's quiet, but I don't really feel any luxury now. Yeah, moving on the left side doesn't make any noises. Here, by the way, there's also quite a lot of soft material, so it's okay, we can tug here and nothing bad happens. Here it creaks a little, here it will definitely creak, and here as well, piano black, too many materials on these protruding elements for it not to creak. Here it also moves a little and settles in somehow. It doesn't differ from my idea of how, in practice, many premium cars from those years were resistant to this kind of pulling. On the other hand, in those years, no one tried to force anything onto the screen. So here we have full control over the seats and other functions, and all these buttons are also fully mechanical, physical, so you could say it's a trade-off. And I think I even prefer this slightly creakier version of things. Here we have 2 cup holders, and in the glove compartment we have a limited amount of space. As you can see, just enough for a few phone gadgets. And here we have a fantastic compartment where I managed to roll up a microfiber cloth, and that's it. When it comes to compartments, of course, there's also a glove box in front of the passenger, but let's be honest, there won't be any miracles here. It's really tiny, although of course it's very well finished. So the only chance is a big, spacious trunk like in a station wagon, but wait, this is a Roadster. Well, the trunk, I'll show you in a moment. We can also put the roof down. I don't know, I think it might require starting the engine, and now we press after folding the roof. I can confirm that there's absolutely no problem with the 2-meter test. It's true that I don't have much space left here, but as you can see, I don't have to slouch either. Nobody buys a Roadster for the trunk, but sometimes you need to take a suitcase with you, so let's take a look. And here we have 165 liters. I'll take out this little backpack that was here as a reference point so you can see roughly how much you can fit. Now you can see the empty trunk. Well, I'd say that 2 carry-on suitcases should fit in here. And basically that's it. We have a sound system here. We have, from what I can see, a first aid kit, a 12V outlet, and the little fridge goes inside, right? And a button, from what I can see, for unfolding the roof, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Let's also count how many seconds it takes to fold the roof. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 seconds at most, okay. Now the driving impression. I picked up the keys to this car at 9:30. Now 3 hours later, it's 32 degrees, so forgive me, but I had to put the roof up because 32 in the sun would mean I'd be sitting right in the sun. That's not pleasant, even if you're driving an AMG Gran Turismo Roadster. Another thing is that this car is too loud to have a conversation without raising your voice. Even now it's too loud, and with the roof down it would be much worse, I would say, since I already referred to it at the beginning. Talking about this car, its looks and its competitors, and saying that the 911 Cabrio could be a point of reference, I think that's the first difference between the AMG Gran Turismo and the 911, because with all due respect, the 911's boxer engine sounds different. And here some people will say it's better, others will say maybe not that much better, but I really like the V8 rumble. That's the first thing. The second thing is that even when we're accelerating in a straight line, this car, unlike the obedient 911, shows that it's a bit harder to handle, more aggressive, less refined. Which means that, well, I'm not even talking about turning the steering wheel, taking corners, adding or letting off the gas to provoke it. You don't need much, but even on a straight, basically the slightest deviation of the steering wheel from 0 immediately causes the rear to start gently sliding and drifting away. So in that respect, it definitely doesn't have the character of the 911, the Star, which is as obedient as possible. The gearbox is fantastic, even though it's a few years old now. It shifts gears basically as if it were a computer simulation. The only real physical limitation to how fast it can shift gears here is simply the engine's ability to rev up to the next revolutions per minute. And that's it. So the downshift in this car looks really fast. Here, for example, we have 5th gear, now we have 3rd, now we have 2nd, now we have 4th, now we have 3rd. And basically you can switch like this, just like on a computer, without feeling like the gears have to catch or the engine has to adjust to it. It just happens, as if it were virtual. That's also fantastic when it comes to accelerating to 100. I was a bit disappointed here because I couldn't activate launch control in this car. Even though I did everything according to the procedure, I couldn't get launch control to work. What happened when you did a regular start, let's say with a gentle hold on the brake and then taking off? As much as possible in Sport Plus mode, in manual with Sport Handling Electronic Stability Program. Anyway, I got something clearly above 4 seconds, so I think launch control would straighten that out. But like I said, for some reason it just wouldn't turn on. Generally, the car absolutely doesn't encourage calm driving, and that calm driving, even in comfort mode, is comfortable. It's more about the spontaneity of the response. Maybe to the gas pedal, maybe it's less noisy, but it's absolutely not comfortable. When it comes to the suspension, because even though the suspension also adjusts in comfort mode, it's still just plain stiff. And here, driving only on good smooth roads saves our spine from constant strain. There's one more thing worth mentioning. I won't say that it surprised or shocked me, because you should expect this from this type of car, but it's how well this car held the road without the roof while driving on the highway. And here it's not really my car, and we don't have a German highway here either. So I didn't test any extreme speeds, but as I was driving on the highway, I have to say that it feels good at any speed. It feels like a fish in water, stuck to the road, very stable. Basically, well, you'd have to go onto a side road to really get into something really deep. Another one for it to start looking for its place on the road more nervously. But if we drive on a good road, this car will really show itself from its best possible side. And it's worth mentioning that there's no problem with braking here either. The car basically stops dead in its tracks. The only limitation is the tires themselves, which probably aren't brand new anymore. They're a bit old and they lose grip. In my opinion, it's a bit too early for that, considering the speed and also the weight of this car. In my opinion, they should squeal a little later. And finally, the moose test. Here, in my opinion, the 911 definitely stands out when it comes to the clarity and precision of the steering response, which is kind of strange because the AMG Gran Turismo has a transaxle layout, so the weight distribution should be quite favorable. On top of that, no matter how you look at it, when you lift the hood, you can clearly see that the engine is definitely positioned behind the front axle. So I don't want to say that we have a mid-engine car here, but it's definitely not an engine hanging out in front. Theoretically, it should respond like gold, but it's just not as sharp as I expected. It definitely stands out from everything else this car offers, whether it's during acceleration, braking, or listening. And that's how it looks. The Mercedes-AMG Gran Turismo Roadster is a car that you buy today not for practicality but for pure emotion. The prices are still several hundred thousand zlotys, to which you have to add, of course, the appropriate maintenance costs, so it's not cheap and it won't be. On the other hand, this is probably the last time we get such a combination in the AMG lineup. V8 biturbo long hood, rear-wheel drive, and the character of a true muscle car in a roadster. Maybe that's the best argument to consider getting such a car now before the world changes completely. How do people react to this car? When you drive out into the city, you bring out the sunshine. Or is it rather because it's not the newest model that it's just an ordinary car now?
No, it's not an ordinary car. On the road, you can literally feel people breathing down your neck when you drive this car. They pull out their phones and record. It's mostly the younger crowd because obviously older people have a bit more composure in these situations, but of course people driving by in cars also turn their heads and look. Let me put it this way. If you go to Krakow and see a Porsche 911, you might spot it a few times in an hour driving through the city. But with this car, you wouldn't be able to find another one like it in Krakow even after 8 hours.
And that's a good summary of why it's worth it.
Why it's worth it and why people notice.
Thank you very much for the story. Thank you very much for lending this car for the test as well.